Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a Puerto Rican podcast of friends coming together to talk about Star Wars and other nerd-related media. Today, we are on Thursdays, ACOLYTE Thursdays, the last ACOLYTE Thursday, unfortunately, where we will be talking about the season finale, not series, season finale of the ACOLYTE, episode 8, aptly titled The Acolyte. And I am so honored, humbled, and joyful to welcome to the podcast very good friend of the channel, a very good friend of mine, amazing voice in the Star Wars community, the one, the only, Chase Hauser. Welcome, Chase.
Hello. Thank you, Goose. It's so nice to be here. I'm very prepared today because I love you so much, and it's such an honor to be here with you. And I want to do you proud. So I have like a full sheet, like back and forth of notes on both the episode and the season. And we've talked about this show many a times over beers, but it'll be nice to talk about it in a very focused way.
In a professional capacity.
Exactly. And I just want to do you proud. So I'm ready for this.
Well, I'm very glad. It looks like you have far more notes than I just have like my little scribbles here.
Good. Those are good.
I feel like I didn't really need to write too much to talk to you because I feel like we're pros. We know.
Yeah, we get the vibe. I might be a little rusty, but we get the vibe.
Oh no, it's riding a bicycle. One never forgets.
Allegedly. Sure, tell me that as I tried to set up my little studio for like an hour. Good
yeah. And if you fall down, it's fine. We'll just set up the little tricycle wheels so that it's fine. It's fine.
Cute. I feel like I'm in very capable hands.
Well, I don't know about that, but
like dad drinking beer capability.
Yes.
Cerveza cristal.
Close, but no cigar. Pacificos.
Oh,
it's my beer of choice when I don't have my Puerto Rican beer medalla. I saw last week I was on Star Wars Explained with Alex and Molly, and I was drinking my medallas, and I was very happy to see some people on the chat recognize them. And it's like, my people.
That's awesome. You got a lot of love for that appearance, Gustavo.
Well,
and I'm gonna toot your horn for you.
Thank you. I wasn't going to do it because it's not in my nature. However, I don't appreciate that Mr. Damon was saying that those are alt accounts of mine.
Right.
It's not. That's organic. My friends.
That's your star value. It's pretty high. Your star meter.
There was a moment in which we stopped talking about the show per se, and like they moved on to the Q&A portion because they were doing like a hybrid of that since it was on Saturday, and then like we're into the Q&A portion, and Molly just messages me. She's like, "Oh, you need to go. You can go. Don't worry about it." And I'm just like, "Well, you didn't tell me to go off. I'm having fun, so you'll have to kick me out now." So
that was pretty awesome because they do normally have guests leave before the Q&A. But I just love that you were just there. It was a really nice surprise this Saturday afternoon. And it was a great episode, so everyone go listen.
It was a surprise for me as well because I was also expecting to be kindly asked to bow out. But it was actually a lot of fun. You just stay and be like, "Hey, I can do this. I can do this too. I can answer questions."
Yeah. VIG, very important, Goose. You're a VIG guest.
It was a Star Wars Explained plus G or Star Wars plus G Explained. I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to find something.
Instead of swag, it was swag. It was SWEG. Swag.
Speaking of swagman, did my box get lost in the mail?
Ooh.
I don't know.
These are the hard hitting questions we're here to ask.
Yeah. No, it's fine. We
Where's
just have
the
a
merch?
little bit. We just have a little bit of FOMO. Maybe some tissues would have been nice. It was brutal. It was a brutal.
Do you know what I did buy the other day? Speaking of Star Wars swag, I bought the Star Wars Oreos finally.
Which one did you get? Dark side or
no? Light side, of course. Light side.
I've got 3 of them, and all of them have been dark side.
No way.
Horrible.
That's awesome. Well, it's so funny because like Blake had some the other day, my partner, and was like, was like,
We love Blake.
or we love Blake, and he was like, there's like sugar packed in the middle of them,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
kyber crystals. Oh, he didn't say that. He's called them sugar crystals, and
They
I
are.
was like so confused because I didn't see that on the package, and so I didn't know, and I was a little high when I was eating them. And
Oh,
I was like, why are they so gristly? Like, why
like
are these
little
Oreos?
crunchy,
Yeah.
extra crunchy.
There's some extra, yeah,
There's some
there's some
sparkly
grit.
crunch action. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but they're fucking good, okay? Oreos are dangerous to have in the house. I had half the bag in one sitting.
They are. Yeah, they're good. I mean, personally, and I know this is a controversial opinion, my favorite are just the chocolate cream Oreos. I don't know why; those are the ones that do it for me.
I
But
don't think I've had those.
but maybe I just need to buy one more pack to see if I can finally get the
Hey,
light
you know what
side.
we should
Because
do? We
otherwise,
should split a pack.
yes, because
And I'll
I cannot keep eating Oreos.
I agree, and it's a problem, but I also want them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna
uh,
go buy some. I'll put half of the container in a um what is it called? It like a
Tupperware.
Tupperware.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
I'll put half the box in a Tupperware and I'll bike it over to you.
I appreciate that because we live pretty close by to each other, and it is
Yeah.
biking season, and I have yet to ride my bike. Well, that's not true. I rode my bike to C2E2, but that was miserable. I have
Yeah.
yet to ride my bike in a pleasant weather day. But
Hmm.
anyway,
I know.
it feels like we're meeting up at a bar. We're not even talking
Yeah.
about what we're supposed
Yeah.
to talk about.
No,
But
we're here to work.
Chase, I think one of the before we get into the episode, we always like to because surprisingly, this is the first time you've been on Triad,
Hey,
which
yeah.
is baffling.
Crazy.
So we still have to do like our get to know you portion,
Oh
and
boy.
I think it's kind of interesting to do it now because if we had done it a year and a half ago, it would have been a lot more
Hmm.
straightforward because you
Hmm.
were on Pink Milk and you had like your channel going on. But I know that a
Hmm.
lot of things have been changing in your life, so your social media presence has decreased. One would say. So,
Decreased to zero. Yeah.
well, I'm not wrong. Uh, so yeah, so tell us a little bit about who Chase Hauser is, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your relationship with Star Wars, the things you've done. Obviously, friends of the channel will know that you hosted
Mm.
a panel at Star Wars Celebration.
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that journey of yours and where you currently are at with yourself and Star Wars.
That's a big question.
Well, you better answer briefly though.
Yeah, I know. I gotta keep this. I'm gonna keep it quippy.
Keep it
Um,
kinetic. Kinetic is the word.
Kinetic is a good word. Listen, I like Star Wars a lot. I'm drinking out of my Mandalorian koozie right
Oh,
now.
I'm out of my malort. We're
Ooh.
different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I like yours though. Okay. I don't know. Basically, I mean, I grew up watching Star Wars as a kid. I was reintroduced to it through lockdown and kind of like brought myself back into it. And my I started a channel and I was also a fan of a podcast, Pink Milk, at the time. And then so I don't know, I just kind of like worked podcasting with Pink Milk during the live streams after dark, and then I was making my own content, and that was a good time. And I did that for a couple years, and with Pink Milk, we did a panel at Star Wars Celebration. I think you and I like really. I'm trying to remember like the first time we like really bonded, and I guess that would probably be Andor. I would assume.
Yes, Andor. I mean,
Um,
we met in
we'd
Anaheim, of
met.
course, but
Hmm.
that's always kind of a cluster because there's so many people.
Yeah,
So yes,
yeah,
I think Andor was it.
yeah. Did we? Yeah, and then did we fly together to Andor?
Accidental. No, we yes,
We
accidentally flew in together. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that was our origin. And then I don't know, and then I just kept doing channel stuff and I had a good time. I did a wonderfully controversial panel about drag and Star Wars in London. That was very fun with Rebecca. We love
We love
Rebecca.
Rebecca.
We really do. So yeah, I don't know, and I slowly sort of have been winding down, but my love of Star Wars is absolutely there. And this acolyte was my obviously as for many other people it was a very highly anticipated series, and while the show did fall short of my expectations overall, this season finale, she was pretty slay. She was pretty damn good. Like that was a really really fun episode. So I don't know, I mean that was kind of as concise as I could be, but I can expand on any of that, Gustavo, that you want me to.
Beautiful. I think that was beautifully concise. But yeah, is there anything that like you're looking forward to in because you're artistic, you're a creator, you like to make things. So is this? Would you say that this is merely a hiatus of Shay's Hauser and
Oh, that's a good
content
question.
creation, or do you think that you're ready to just move on to like something different?
It's a good question. I feel like I'm sitting down with like Barbara Walters after like a break for like 60 minutes, and we're like, okay. I don't know, Goosey. I really was gonna make some content. I was gonna do like a review for the Acolyte on my channel, but then you asked me to do this, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect. I don't need to do a whole thing. I'll just talk to Goose. And then there are like honestly, there are some. I wouldn't say I'm gone forever. There's like some not that anyone cares, but
Oh, I disagree.
I do have like some videos I want to work on. That I'm like reaching out to some like people that are a little bit smarter than me to get them done. So I have like some very rough outlines of videos, but they're like pretty long. They'd be very long format video essays about like over identifying with IPs, which we all do, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Everyone does, and like the sense of over identification or like like almost spiritual belonging to certain um corporations or fandom spaces as like a church and a community, and like the good
Mhm.
things and tricky things about those types of things. I also do have like a prequels video I've wanted to work on for years
Mm.
and years and years. I just have never done it because I can't find the right collaborator for it. I need to hire someone as a fashion consultant, actually. So, but anyways, I mean, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think that like I really do have an interest. I do like making videos and I do like talking about things, but I am no longer interested in sort of like personally in trying to keep anything up. I'd rather just sort of like if I feel the passion for something, make it and put it out. And if YouTube is the avenue through which I want to create on this one specific subject, that I will. If it's like production live in person, then I'll do that. But it's basically like I see YouTube now, I think, as a one form and one avenue of creative expression, not the sole avenue
Mhm.
of expression. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate the direction of creating value through scarcity because I
Mm.
think everyone misses Chase, and I think your voice in fandom was a very important one and a very bright light that was had during a very fun and united moment in our fandom spaces, and it's definitely I think you're missed.
Hmm.
And not only am I happy to be talking to you now in these spaces and be able to hopefully have people listen to this so they can connect with your voice after a minute and a half, but also have you come back on your own terms and have some things to say that people I am sure will want to listen to and listen more of. So we're looking forward to the future and the things you have to say.
Well, I just want to say thank you because I have very complicated feelings about a lot of it. Like I could go on and on and talk about it, but I just want to say thank you. I appreciate that, and that means a lot. So, thank you.
You mean a lot to us too. And something interesting now, you were talking about the acolyte, and what a
Mhm.
coincidence because that's what I wanted to talk about
Oh my
today.
god, perfect. I had no idea.
It's as if we had planned it, and I think that it's kind of a joyful moment because I know uh, we have met up a couple of times in the past, a couple of weeks. The past has been years ago. And in the past couple of weeks, we met up and had some drinks and been talking about the
Mhm.
show. And
Mhm.
I know that you have been saying, and you just said it now, that the vibes have been off for you for the
Mm.
acolyte. So before we get into episode 8, and I think this is one of the reasons that I kind of wanted to talk to you about the finale is because you have had a diverging experience to mine, which kind of complements all the themes of the show, right? Of the
Yeah,
dualities
T.
of the self and all these things, and now we have like bodies of opinions right now
I love that.
in a respectful and beautiful environment. Uh, but I am also happy that that you at least vibe with the end, because even with the not connecting with the series beforehand, at least we have like a joyful moment
Yeah.
to talk about in terms of like our enjoyment of the finale at least. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience watching episodes 1 through 7,
Mm,
and why the show hasn't connected with you? Because I know a lot of people online have been, this show is miserable, it's a terrible show, but a lot of those voices are like the disingenuous
yeah.
fandom voices that already came in wanting to not like it, and they're just trying to
Yeah.
validate their opinions because, you know, some agenda. And
Right.
I appreciate talking with someone that has had negative opinions about the show, not in terms of like toxicity towards the show, but just
Yeah.
not connecting with it and having like a genuine discussion about the things that don't connect. So why don't you tell us a
Hmm.
little bit about your journey with the show and why it hasn't been what you maybe hoped it was going to be?
Well, I will say I am also very happy that we get to end on this because, as you know, I was increasingly nervous as we got closer and closer to recording. I was like, "Goose, it's never too late to uninvite me because I don't want to come on for like the finale episode where everyone's like stoked about it and just poop on it." So I'm glad. Yes, I'm glad that that was like that. The finale really worked for me. Okay. Overall thoughts about the show. I guess I'd say I think it wasn't a terrible show. I don't think it was like the garbage a lot of people were claiming it was, online, and my online experience is just YouTube, so it's, like, just YouTube and, like, articles, but articles are clickbaity because articles need to get clicks to make to sell the
Mhm.
ads, okay. So anyway, but it also wasn't like to me wasn't like great, great, great. It wasn't like the epitome of Star Wars, and it wasn't amazing. It was so somewhere in the middle. And on that note, I think I would give it like a 5.5 out of 10 overall.
Oh.
I
Mhm.
would give it a 6 if we got a shot of Kymir's booty when he was walking into the ocean. But we didn't get the butt shot, so it has to stay at the 5.5. Um, but I don't know. I think for me, the biggest thing was you've talked about this before. You talked about it on your episode that you recorded with Brian at Peak Milk last week.
Mhm.
But the show didn't have enough room to stretch out and
Mhm.
breathe. And I think for that reason, it was really, really hard to invest in these characters. And I think that be for me, and I think that because it couldn't like breathe, we couldn't invest in the characters. We also like had a lot of scenes of people just sort of like talking at each other and being like, "Well, you want this, and this person wants this, and like, you this isn't what really happened and they're just telling you that," and like just a lot of people talking to each other, and then like sort of for me the characters got really confusing in terms of their motivations because there's a lot of flip-flopping for me.
Mhm.
There was a lot of like May is like this vengeance seeker and she wants to kill all the Jedi. Then she's like, no, I'm going to turn myself into the Jedi because I care to be with my sister. And then she's like, no, I'm going to fight every single fucking Jedi. And then she's like, no, and then I'm going to fight my sister, then knock her out, and then cut my hair and pretend to be her. Like I just think if we had more space to explore these sort of things, they would hit really hard because I think the show has a lot of incredible like moments and like really amazing characters. And one of the things I thought it was so cool about the show was how they weren't afraid to like kill off these really cool characters, these established characters. And like the themes of parentage and like a parent and a child trying to like come to terms with certain traumas that parents inevitably put on their kids. I mean,
Mhm.
that is
Mhm.
an incredible theme of the show. Also, just sort of living with hate and manipulating others and controlling and controlling your own emotions and all those types of things. So thematically, I really really liked it. But I don't know. I think that's what I'd say for my overall thoughts. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into more overall thoughts that I have later, but that's like my whole experience. Does that make sense? Is that a good that's a good
I
answer?
mean, it definitely makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that I agree with you with a lot of what you're saying. Obviously, while I agree, like I have like a different take on some
Right.
of those
Right.
some of those things, but I think we'll just talk about it like at the end, right? To kind of talk
Yes.
as the show as a whole. But yeah, you were
I
saying.
did want to say though, I it's interesting too because, like, I'm watching this as someone who really cares more about character than anything, and I think, like, one thing that you said in the past off the record, but
Off
you
the
were, like, talking
record.
you were talking to me and you're like, "You have accepted the fact that they are confined to this 8 episode, short episode structure, and you've accepted that, and so you're coming from the angle of appreciating that they're just giving us the events that happened in order
Mhm,
to tell the whole story, which I think is like super great. And like, it's just so important when when anyone has any conversation about any piece of art to have that personal audience context. Do you know what I mean?
mhm,
It's like, I'm pretty unforgiving in terms of like, uh, I just like want to like sit in characters' brains all the time, and if I'm not sitting in characters' brains, I don't care. Which is, that's just how I am.
mhm,
So and then I don't know. So I've always loved talking about it with you because you're a really good person to talk to about it in terms of grounding me and my type of personality with the show or my type of audience ship where it's like when I talk to you about it, I'm like, oh, you're right. Like Goose is right. Like, what if I just like accepted the fact that they don't have hour-long episodes, and it is only going to be 8 episodes, and we do have confinements there. So I thought that was just really nice. I think it's a beautiful attribute.
Well, thank you, and I think it's important just in, like, not just for the acolyte, but just in all almost every aspect in life and things that we're going to engage with to meet it where it's at, because if we're
Mhm.
just projecting our wants and
Yeah.
needs and expectations on everything, then we'll just always be disappointed because we're
Mhm.
kind of being the dark side, right? We're just projecting our
Yeah.
emotions in onto it and just coming at it already from an unbalanced position.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that what I'm proposing means that you're just going to be so charitable to everything that you're going to
Right.
look past its flaws. That's
Right.
not at all what I mean to say, but I think it puts us in a at least in a nuanced position to be able to kind of
Mhm.
engage with it where it's at and then see the beauty and the warts,
Yeah.
from kind of the middle. So
Absolutely.
I mean, we try. I mean, sometimes we fail,
I
but all
agree.
we
I
can
love
do
it. No,
is try. All
it's
we
the
can do is try.
self-awareness and yeah, it's good. I love that.
So tell me, now we're officially on episode 8, titled "The Acolyte," on this show called "The Acolyte." What
Yeah.
changed in this episode to make you enjoy it more than you have been thus far the series?
Okay. Great question. And I I have an answer to that. Because when I was watching it, okay, Goose, I'm so excited to tell you this. Okay,
Okay, here
I
we
wanted to tell you
go.
last night on the group chat, but then I was like, A, it's way too much to type, and B, I'll just tell him on the show. So I started watching this episode and I was like, damn, okay, wait, this is actually kind of good. I was 15 minutes in, and Blake was kind of interrupting me, which I wouldn't really mind on any of these episodes because they weren't really hitting for me.
Yeah.
But this one, I was like, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. So I waited for him to leave, and then I went and made popcorn, and then I rewatched the entire episode from beginning to end uninterrupted. Like, because I could tell it was like hitting, and I
Mhm,
was like, why do I care about this episode so much?
mhm,
And I think the answer is I think by episode 8, I really started to care about these characters. And I think
mhm,
that's what was missing me for a lot of the show, missing for me. And there's a lot of, small areas in which I think I could specifically say why I didn't care for the characters. That doesn't really matter. It's more like the more a really great show can get you to care about characters very early on.
mhm,
And a show that is good, but not necessarily excellent, you might take a little bit longer to really care about the characters. And that's just my point of view on this show. It
mhm.
took me a very long time to care, but luckily by the finale, I seemed to care. So I think that was it. And so it's a little bit of like it's not a concrete answer to like what changed for this episode for me. It was more like by episode 8, I kind of cared about these characters. Do you know what I mean? And also it was just like I think there was finally stakes, for something that was billed as like this mystery who done it crime thing,
Mhm.
there didn't feel to be a lot of stakes until this episode. So finally, I'm like, damn, there is something to lose. There is something to gain. I'm invested. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. So I think that's what changed the most for me. What about you? What was your vibe on this episode?
I
Going
I
in, going into it, and coming out of it.
I mean, it's. I was already vibing right with the whole
Right.
series,
Right.
and that's not to say that I haven't had my issues right with the
Of
series,
course.
because I do think that there are things where where the series can improve, and shortcomings, and maybe story structure and all those things, and we can talk about that later. So like I know that the show has like its limitations, but on the whole, like I've really been enjoying the journey, and I think
Mhm.
that one of the great parts of this journey as well has been the week to week release structure,
Yep.
because the I don't think since Andor, to be honest, like we've had like this, discourse online of everyone kind of theorizing and coming together and being like, what's gonna happen next and this character, so kind of just seeing all the
Mhm.
mini fandoms that have been popping up on social
I've
media
heard about the Yord
for
Horde.
the Yord Horde and the
Yeah.
Jackie Jam and the Soul Patrol. It's
Wait, wait,
been
wait, wait. What's Jackie's?
the Jackie Jam.
Oh, that's so cute.
It is very cute,
I
and
love that.
so is the Soul Patrol.
That's
So
perfect.
it's been really gratifying to see that, because it's been surging in an environment that also seemed to be hostile and negative towards the show for
Mm.
no reason at all, except that some uh, portions of the fandom just come at it with ill intent, which is
Mhm.
boring and trite at this point, but also gets exhausting. So to kind of see the
Yeah.
joy rise to the top
Good.
from all that hate has been a very happy experience while
Good.
watching this show. And the show has been like I've said in the past, like the show has is the one that I was looking forward to the most, because it's the
Mhm.
one with the most intriguing premise and the most unique, and in many
Mhm.
ways. So I've been cruising, man. Like it's been great, and
Yeah.
ever since the fight in the red wedding episode night, when the stranger just lets loose and just
Yeah.
murders everyone, I'm just like, oh crap,
Yeah.
they're not messing
Yeah.
around, which
Right.
I really appreciate it, because it's one of the things that we thought people were going to be safe, because it's a Star Wars show, and like
Mhm.
it's who Jackie and George certainly aren't going to die, and to kind of
Right.
see that, have them be killed in that way, it's just like, oh, okay, so this is not what we thought it was. So I think
Right.
that that's the great thing for me about the show, that it did is kind of like it's the Last Jedi of the Disney Plus shows, basically.
Mm.
It subverts your expectations of what the show is, because it
Mhm.
is supposed to be this one thing, but it's really something different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned it, right? Because the show is built about the thriller and the whodunit aspect of it. But as you said, like the whodunit we know it since the beginning. But so in that way, just like I said, the Last Jedi, it's also Knives Out in that regard, and they're both Ryan
Mm.
Johnson, right? It's just a version of a genre. In
Mhm.
Knives Out, the first one, who does it since the beginning. So
Mhm.
it's not really about the who did it, but the why of it all. It's the
Right.
why is more
Right.
important than the who, and I
Mhm.
think that that's the crux of this show. It's like the why, and
Mhm.
it's been a very compelling show in that regard, because then it's the deconstruction of all these characters. It's just the character study and the deconstruction of why people do this, and the dualities between all of us, and in the very literal sense, right, with May and Osha. But I think it's been exquisitely structured too, despite my uh, reservations with the structure. I also
Mhm.
do acknowledge that it's very thoughtful and creative, because, and I said this last week, and I think I said it with Alex and Molly the other day. Like if you split the show in half, it's like the show is a mirror of itself. So you look
Yeah.
at it from the middle
Yeah.
outward, it's kind of like the same journey, just in verse, and so
Yeah.
you can watch the show backwards and forwards, and it's kind of like the same thing. So I kind of appreciate that duality, or the mirrored aspect of the
Mhm.
storytelling of the show, like how as it moves in and out, like it's telling one story, and you can look at it from different points of view. So
Yeah.
so in that sense, I think that while I have enjoyed the weekly release schedule because of the discourse surrounding it, I do think that the show can be appreciated a lot more as a binge,
Yeah,
just because
yeah,
you could
for
just like
sure.
just see the whole thing and understand everything.
Right.
So with all that preamble, I was already prepped. I was looped up, ready to go
Yeah.
into episode 8. Sorry, kids, if you're listening. Don't ask your parents what that means. But yeah, episode 8 was great because I feel episode 8 took all the ingredients from everything that worked from all the previous episodes and just
Mhm.
dumped it into
Mhm.
this one. You get epic lightsaber fights from episode 5. You get Brendock as the setting from the flashbacks. You get like
Mhm.
the dualities of Osha and May that we've been exploring in previous episodes and the flashbacks. You get the political intrigue that we've seen hinted before with
Yeah.
Vernestra be super explored, which we'll talk about that because that scene with Senator Rancourt was
So good.
so good.
So
So
good.
so good. And
Yeah.
then it's I think a satisfying finale because it not only tied all these things, answered the questions we needed, but then sequel baited for next season, but in a way where I feel like even if we don't get a second season, it's cohesive and season one feels complete because even the cameo of Darth Plagueis and Yoda, I don't think that that's like, oh my god, this now we have to know. It's just like we kind of know who they are, which
Well, that was the only caveat I'd say is Darth Plagueis, it's a little confusing because it's like, is he spying on them? Is he in on it? Is he vetting new, like, do you know what I mean? Like new apprentices, like what? That's the only thing. I loved seeing him, and I was gagged, and I was gooped, and I loved it. But I also was like, is this not kind of confusing? Like, what is he doing there? That was my only thing.
well, but I think that's the season two thing. It's like
Sure,
what's his
sure,
deal? So
sure.
so I
Yeah.
think that's why. But to that end, I will also say, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Which I think your thoughts on this will also be complicated because you're a Star Wars fan as I, so you're kind of deep
Mhm.
into fandom. But it was interesting because yesterday I was watching the show with my partner. My partner
Yeah.
is not, uh, well, I guess at this point she can't be called a Star Wars fan because when I asked her, "Hey, when is the Acolyte set?" She responds with High Republic, and I'm just like, if you know what the High Republic is,
You're a nerd.
you're a nerd. You're a Star Wars fan. But anyway, but she still is coming at it like from the outside, so she's not
Right.
versed in the lore, and she doesn't know who any character is basically besides the original trilogy squad.
Yup.
So after we finished the show, she didn't vibe with it, and one of the things that
Mhm.
we that she mentioned was that this episode kind of the advantage that the rest of the season had was that, and I don't want this episode to be the acolyte retrospective. We should focus on episode 8, but the rest of the season had a benefit of being for a larger appeal because since it's set in a different era and all the characters are new, uh, anyone can come at it without kind of having to know the lore,
Right.
right? Which I'm hating that word because some fans are making it so toxic. But
Are they
anyway,
really?
well, yeah, because like it's like what it's breaking the lore. I mean, it's like it's all made up, dude.
Oh,
Whatever.
yeah, Kiadi Mundi.
Oh yeah, so whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different conversation. But then this episode, because it was so chock full of references to the prequels and the original
Mhm.
trilogy, and some of those nods are more, you know, if you know, you know, type of thing. There's
Yeah.
still like the Darth Plagueis stuff and Yoda at the end. So like, there's a lot of things that she mentioned that took her out of the accessibility of the show, right? Where
Sure.
while the rest of the season to connect because
Yeah.
it's not connected. Like this episode, I felt like it was trying to connect to like all the you know again lore, and it just made her disconnect from the episode. So
Yeah.
you think that there's something
Yeah.
to that to episode 8, and is that a reason that you actually vibe with it a little bit more?
I think that it took me out a little bit. I'm kinda with Annie. I do feel like it felt very sequel baity because it was like I laugh because it's like thinking about, like, Annie watching that show and vibing with it, all of a sudden there's this creepy guy in the cave. like she's probably like, "Who the hell is that?" You know what I mean? Like,
And me
and not
jumping around like a crazy
yeah,
person around
yeah,
the
yeah,
apartment, like,
yeah.
"It's my gas!"
Right, right. And then like even like I could see like a casual fan being like, "Is that Yoda? How is he alive?" Like, you know what I mean? Like I bet you that's like a casual fan's question, or like I don't know, maybe they could have given him like a little haircut or cut out some of those gray hairs. He's still young, he's still kicking it, you know. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think those things are fun. They just sort of like this is gonna sound so bitchy, but to me they just didn't feel that like deserved because to me there was still a lot that like wasn't really making sense. Like again, this episode is really like my favorite episode of the season, but for me overall there was just like a couple things that really also still weren't adding up for the whole show. So to like have these ooh and ah moments that it felt to me as if like they're like, oh, we're gonna get, renew the acolyte trending on Twitter tonight. And I'm like, girl, like that's my only thing. That's my only thing. But it was fun
It
to see
was,
Darth
and
Plagueis, but it
and
was
it trended, it
confusing.
trended.
I'm sure it did. Like Darth Plagueis was exciting, but confusing for me. And then Yoda was like cool, but then I'm also like, okay, what is happening? Like Venestra feels like she's fucking evil, and she's like, but she's going to Yoda, and like Yoda should probably be like a homie at this point. Like he's
Mhm,
not like it just like the that so it did I found it confusing. I found it
mhm.
confusing emotionally because I was excited and also like, "What's happening?" You know?
It's
That's yeah.
it's it's interesting because I don't inherently disagree, right? Because for me, like, it's been great to be having this
Yeah.
experience with her because
Yeah.
I get to see the perspective, see and hear the
Mhm.
perspective of someone that's not in it the way that I'm in it, and kind of like like you were saying how I grounded you, like she grounds me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so
And we all ground each other.
and we all ground each other. It's a it's a circle of life here, a circle of friendship. So it's great because when sometimes I try to put myself in that position, and
Mhm.
but sometimes I just convince myself like, oh no, it
Yeah,
works because
yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
Because you're a
Like
fan. Yeah.
objectively, I mean, and objectively, sure, like the things that I think in my mind about how things should work
Mhm.
objectively make sense, but there's a
Yeah.
subjective way of the experience watching it, and I don't
Right.
disagree. I don't disagree. Like I think that there, yeah, some things were definitely put in there for fans,
Yeah.
and it definitely felt like well, not definitely, but in a way kind of felt Marvel post credit scene, but we can't do a
Yeah.
post credit scene because this isn't Marvel, so let's
Yeah.
just put the post credit scene right in the show, type of thing. So
Mhm. I will
it's
say no, keep going, keep going.
no, I was just gonna kind of finish up saying that I mean I loved it, and and
Mhm.
I know the implications and the potential for both
Mhm.
of those characters now to
Mhm.
be part of the show, and based on what we know from Yoda in the prequels and what we read about him in the High Republic, I'm just like this is gonna be really interesting. And
Yeah.
obviously, Plagueis, we know from the book that he exists and that there's stuff, but like now we don't know anything about him in canon. So it's just gonna
Yeah.
be interesting to see how Leslie uses that because she, as it's been said, she's a fan of the EU. So kind of
Mhm.
take that and just modernize it into like her new mythology.
Is it renewed yet or no?
Hmm?
Is it renewed yet or no, the show?
I think that they're waiting to drop the news because today they dropped the news that Young Jedi Adventures is getting season 2 in
Hey,
August.
that's I can get with that show. I fucking love
So
that show.
they're letting the young Jedi's have their moment in the sun.
True.
So I would hope maybe at SDCC at San Diego Comic Con they announce it or
Hey,
something. But
yeah.
I in my mind when I read the article that it was doing fun, like good in
Mhm.
streaming, and
Mhm.
you know the Stranger helmet on Hasbro Pulse sold out immediately.
Ooh,
So
such a good one.
I'm just like, and people are vibing. It with that ending again. I wouldn't be surprised if they renew it or have already renewed it, but just haven't announced it
Yeah.
because if Andor got renewed with far less viewership,
Mhm.
there's no reason why this show wouldn't be renewed.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. I also think that, like, even with negative attention, it's getting attention, and that's what they care about. So
And it's one of those things. Like I think Star Wars needs another show that is a continuous thing. I'm
Yeah, of
tired.
course.
I'm tired of this whole Marvel slash Star Lucasfilm model of let's just throw out a bunch of shows, but they're
Right,
just like limited series basically
right.
of shows and just keep that going. I kind of just
Yeah.
want to have comfort food, I just want to have
Yeah.
my show and watch a couple seasons of it,
Mhm.
like television used to be. So
Yeah,
I
I
hope
know.
that Acolyte joins the ranks of Mando to just be a show that we can consistently
Yes.
count on for a season every other year or every year. I don't like this
Yeah.
whole thing of waiting
No.
more than a year for a season. I don't know
No.
why streaming services are
Especially
doing that.
yeah, especially because it's like as we talked about, like, feeling invested in a character, like, as soon as you get invested in this whole crew, it's like all of a sudden they're not coming back for another season, and that's hard. Because I will say, I think I would fuck with an Acolyte season 2 a
Mhm.
lot more than I messed with season 1. I think I'd like it more just because, like, by nature of, like, spending more time with these characters, you just like them more, and that even for people who love them right away, it's like the more time you spend with the characters, the more you love them. So when they just disappear and, like, it was just like a one-time thing, that's disappointing. And I think honestly, I will feel better about the cameos once they announce season 2
Mhm.
is coming. Because otherwise it's like, whoa, you just opened a bunch of a can of worms that it's like, where are we going with this? You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
so I hope it is going somewhere because I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate for Acolyte season 2.
Hashtag renew the acolyte.
Hashtag
Unless,
renew all of Star Wars and bring back Willow while you're at it.
un, yeah, they did that tease of two more seasons. Just keep your promises, Lucasfilm,
Oh,
and
I just need to
send me
yeah,
that swag mini box. Come on,
yeah. Come on now.
send me,
Come on.
send me. I got the
Send it.
Ahsoka one. Send me the acolyte.
Yeah, I
I don't
agree.
need all of them, but I want
No.
the echo. Anyway, but one thing you were saying is in being invested in all of these characters,
Mhm.
and I think that a lot of the characters have been wonderful, though they could have been. We could have taken a lot more time, right, to
Mhm.
not just deconstruct them, but understand them further. Because, like you said, they not that they're one dimensional, because they're certainly not one dimensional, but we do kind of rush to an extent their character development because of the structure of the show. But you were gonna say something.
You know when you take a straw that's in a paper and you hit the straw on the table and then you get the paper to be scrunchy and then you put a drop of water on it and it expands?
I mean, I can visualize it. Nothing.
Okay, so we have a physicist on our hands. You don't even need an example. You can just imagine it. Um, well, that's a thing that I used to do. Anyways, like it's like a paper like it's all like accordion, and there's a bunch of ridges to it because, like you said, the characters have layers and they have texture.
Yeah, yeah,
But when you
yeah.
put that drop of water on it, it goes boom, and it like billows out, and it's
Hmm.
iconic to watch. Would recommend next time you have a straw. But also, it's a good metaphor for like what I wish these characters could have done because they did have all these layers and they did have all these like ridges, and then if we just put that water on it, they could just expand and just breathe. Anyway,
and
that's my metaphor.
And I mean, and I agree because the pair of characters, I think all, if not some, if not all of the characters in the Acolyte are paired together, right, in terms of
Mm,
relationships.
mhm,
And obviously, the main one is Osha and May, and as it's revealed by Soul, they're actually not twins and they're not sisters. They're actually the same
mhm,
person, which a lot of people were theorizing that that was the case, and we finally got confirmation on that, which I think is an interesting development, not
mhm,
just for plot and lore, which
mhm,
sure nerds, but for me it's really interesting just conceptually to have presented it that way because it's a very a very literal way to talk about the binaries and dualities that we kind of all struggle with
mhm,
on our interior and our subconscious and our consciousness and all those things and kind of be manifest physically. Uh, and have their reversals happen. And I think that one of the really interesting things about them is not just their reversals, but also see like why those reversals happen. And
yeah,
it's when they're like at the tree, and May is obviously clad in white, so now she's in a different path to Osha's. But I think the interesting thing for me at that moment was that she's at peace because she uh, confronted her darkness. She went to the dark side.
Yeah.
She
Mhm.
took that path. She went through the path of revenge until she realized that there was nothing there for her and was able to go into the path of justice. So like the title duality from
Oh,
episode
I
two
like that. I
is
like that a lot.
manifest here. But I think that's the important thing. She has a true balance and a true light side now because she
Ooh.
confronted darkness, where Osha's was always, and I use that in quotations, kind of a fake lightness because she was just suppressing
Yeah.
dark. She wasn't
Yeah.
because to be in the light is not rejecting dark; is to accept her darkness, but
Right.
choose to walk in the light. And Osha never accepted her darkness, so she was
Yeah.
not genuinely walking in light. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's why May at the end tells her like, you need to walk that path
Yeah.
because you can't, you walk this one and it wasn't working. You need to walk that one before to find yourself. And I already walked it, so you have to
Yeah.
walk it for yourself. But it's interesting because they're the same person, they can't
Right.
walk it together. They have to walk
Right.
the separate paths because that's those halves. Those halves have to experience it. And
Yeah.
once that happens, then they can come back together, which is why I'm interested in seeing them meet up in season 2 or 3 or whenever it happens. But
Mhm.
what was that's my
It's a
reaction to
an
their
incredible
relationship.
take. That's an
Oh,
incredible take. I
fabulous.
genuinely love that. Like, that makes me like this show/episode even more. Like, that's a really good take. It's like Galadriel in, Rings of Power, where she's, like, she's going to elf heaven, and she's like,
Mm-hmm,
"No, I gotta jump in the darkness. I gotta go touch
mm-hmm.
the darkness. I gotta know." So I love that so much. What was the question? I just wanted to, like, applaud that take. It was a
Oh, no, no,
beautiful,
no.
beautiful analysis. Not even a take. That's a lessening it. That's an analysis, and I love that. I do.
I
You
blush.
should tell people about that.
Well, that's why I have this
I
podcast.
know.
But I know, but now I want to know like your thoughts on the Osha May relationship, especially in how it manifests in episode 8. Right? I know we kind of
Right.
keep talking about the rest of the season since it's I
Well,
think
it's a
inevitable
finale.
since it's
Yeah,
a
it's a
finale.
yeah.
But
Mhm.
specifically with this episode, like how did you feel about their relationship and how like with the fighting, right? There was a lot of the
Mhm.
aspect that they're fighting with the same moves, even though they're
Yes.
opposing each other and having the same
Yes.
stances and everything. That's a lot of
Yes.
visual storytelling. So how did you react to their relationship in this episode?
First and foremost, as someone who grew up in a family with many siblings, I love any sibling dynamic, okay? Especially when you're like fighting your sibling in your childhood bedroom that's been like just covered in ash from a
Mm-hmm.
fire that your sibling started. So that was like drama, and I loved that. And then also, like, it was giving me Buffy the Vampire Slayer in terms of like a Slayer fighting a Slayer where they just fight exactly the same. And like it's almost like one can't really beat the other. And so I really, really loved that. So just like aesthetically and like theatrically, those two really worked for me. Um, I love your take about the light and the dark, like I just said. They worked really well for me. I found it a little bit confusing about being the same person when, like, Osha had the vision that she saw May killing without a weapon,
Mm-hmm.
but that was actually maybe it was just, like, a vision of May doing it, but it
I mean,
actually ended up
she's literally saying herself because they're the same
I
person.
know,
Oof, so good.
but my only thing is I wish that has and maybe I need to rewatch it, but I wish that had happened other times
Oh,
in the
okay, yeah,
show
yeah, I
because it
agree.
was like that would cause a lot of confusion if you couldn't differentiate yourself from your twin. You know what I mean? That would
Yeah.
create a lot of confusion. So the fact that that only came out once, that was a little confusing to me. But outside of that, I loved it. I wanted to cry more when they were saying goodbye, but
Mm-hmm.
like I couldn't get past the fact that I'm like, hey, you guys could like get off this planet together so that the Jedi don't kidnap you. But I think the writing really wanted there to be a memory wipe.
Mm-hmm. Didn't that give you Harry Potter vibes in Deathly Hallows with the Obliviate? They just like wipe
Yeah.
the memory, so because they have to go away and do their thing. I was just like, oh, that's Harry Potter right there.
Oh, that's in okay, yes. I think my issue isn't the memory wipe. My issue is the context in which the memory wipe came up, where it's like if they I don't know, it just seems like they caved too easily on, well, one of us has to get caught by the Jedi. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, I get again. limited time, but like I think I just would have liked it if they like had no choice but to erase the memory, or they erase the memory in order to protect the other one.
I mean, it's interesting now that you're saying it because I'm trying to justify in my mind or trying to find like the reason. And like one
Right.
thing that I saw in a YouTube video was that it's kind of the technical one. It's like, oh, the ship that they're on only fits two people. There's only two
Sh-
seats
sure.
in Chimere's ship, so that's one reason. I mean, they could scooch in and fit, but
Yeah, I've ridden in
technically,
cars on people's laps before.
it's the whole Titanic.
The door.
They both could have
Mm,
fit on the door, but
sure.
plot reasons. But I think the thing about it too is just like, oh well, her staying there and having the Jedi capture her slows them down so that they can get away more comfortably.
Oh, okay. I like that one more.
But then now, what I was noodling as you were talking was just that
Huh?
thematically, it's about May since she finished her journey. It's just like her journey of darkness and revenge. She's ready for the reset. It's like, oh, I don't need that anymore. Like I walked that
Yeah.
path, and it's not the path that I need. So now we go back to like the last moment in which before I took my journey to darkness, and now taking my steps in the light, which is kind of echoed right with the beginning of the show with Osha having
Mhm.
Pip, and now May has Pip, and they're
Yeah.
starting to have that same bond that Osha had at the beginning. Now May has it with starts developing with her. So I think
Yeah.
it's kind of weird that now she like has the memories of an 8 year old, but but I think thematically it kind of
Yeah.
makes sense.
I do just wish that like she had I love what you said. I wish that May could have the autonomy to move forward with that balanced side of herself. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that she could move forward. I wish that like I love and I this is my issue, dude. I just wish we got the feeling that May didn't actually want to kill all these Jedi and was getting tired of the mission of vengeance and was kind of over this like hatred and darkness and that she wanted to go to the light. And I wish we got more of the vibe that Osha wanted to get to the darkness. You know what I mean? It's like I just wish we could have done that a little bit more and leaned into it because it can, not does, it can to some read as just like wishy-washy flippy
Mhm.
floppy. And I just wish I got more of a sense of she didn't want to do the darkness thing. It was starting to grind on her. Then she decided not to do it, but she was still doing it even when she wasn't doing it, which was confusing. And then I just wish I mean, I love all of your analysis. Like I like the show more after hearing your analysis. I just wish that if we're gonna do a memory, I mean, I wish we just don't do memory wipe or we do it at the top of the next season or something in between.
I just think that
Because
the memory was going to be undone. Is the thing. It's like once
well, I
May and
know, but
Osha
like
reconnect, unlock the
sure,
memories.
sure. But if we're talking about season one as a standalone thing, it would have been a little bit more satisfying for me to watch May be like, oh no, like I did the good kid, the fine kid thing, I did the dark side thing, and now I'm ready to just like do the good side thing and just kind of find that balance
Mhm.
instead of her having that realization and having her memory wiped, and now she's like a vegetable 8-year-old. like,
Yeah, I mean, and I
like,
get it because I have felt that May specifically, her journey to kind of come back was stumbled a little bit
yeah. Hmm.
because while I understand the reasons for a lot of it, I do think that with longer episodes and a
Yes,
longer
yes.
season, there should have been a lot more introspective moments of her.
Yes.
She's thinking about these
Yes.
things because I don't
Yes.
think that she stopped hating the Jedi, and that's why she wanted to stop her mission. Her mission was
Right.
about revenge, and once she
Right.
realized that Osha's around, she's like, "Wait, I don't need to do this because the reasons I was doing it
Right.
are based on just misinformation." But
Yeah.
the reason I think she still keeps fighting us is that because she still hates them. Like, they're still
Mhm.
a terrible institution, and Soul still killed her mother. So she's like, yeah,
Mm.
like I don't want revenge anymore because I got my sister and that's what I want. But you're still bad. So
Wait, why doesn't she just pretend her memory was wiped?
Well, the Jedi can see through it. Well, one, the Jedi can see through it, probably.
Oh, that's T.
And then two, Chimera is dark side. He's like, no, no one can know that you know me. You're gonna be with the
Right.
Jedi. We still have to make sure that Ki-Adi-Mundi is dumb in
Yeah.
episode 1. So
We got to make sure that the only thing he cares about is fucking bitches.
yeah, hey,
Even at his old age.
maybe they're gonna retcon that now since
Oh
since
no,
Disney's
he's a
woke.
monogamist. Yeah,
Maybe no.
monogamism is woke.
Maybe he's just gonna be celibate.
Sure,
But
sure.
speaking of older Jedi who might
Mm,
or might not be celibate, our boy Soul. I've been on the Soul Patrol since day
girl,
one.
I am on the other side of that. You and I are like Osha and May, and I am
We are.
very not into
Well,
soul.
we hug
I
under
want to be.
trees and we have a
Yeah,
good
but we
time
meet under our little magic tree. I love that.
with our blue butterflies.
Cute.
Um, what did you think of Soul? Like I was, like I said, on the Soul Patrol, and
Mm,
I thought it was great to see because through Soul is how we're seeing the deconstruction of the Jedi as an institution, right? And
mm-hmm.
in many ways, but it's spoiler alert, they kill him, right? And
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. While in the in episode 6, when they're exploring Kofar, and it's intuited that they couldn't believe anyone else could have done it except a rogue Jedi, and
Mm-hmm.
the nerd Jedi says just like, "Oh, you don't think Master Soul did this?" I was like, "Oh, are they gonna blame him for everything that happened and just like use him to, do the cover up?" I still had hope that he would make it out, but to
Yeah.
see him be killed, and to see him be killed by OSHA was
Yeah.
a pretty intense moment.
Yeah.
So before we go into what happens to OSHA after she, uses the Force to Force choke
Ooh.
him, which was amazing. Let's talk about
Chef's
Soul.
kiss.
Let's talk about Soul and
Okay.
his portrayal throughout the series, and especially with this episode. I think in this episode was the most disappointed I've been in him
As
because
a character or like
as a
from the right?
character,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
as a character, because I understand that he messed up in
Mm-hmm.
Brendock 16 years ago.
Mm-hmm. But wait, and how did he mess up?
Oh, a plethora of bad
Okay.
decisions.
Okay. Great.
One, one, the just wanting to just find the virgins because he needs to
Right.
be on this noble quest, and then two, getting obsessed with needing an apprentice, and then the first ones that he sees like that's my apprentice, and then
Yeah.
projecting the noble actions of a Jedi on situations that he's misinterpreting, where
Mm-hmm.
he feels like he needs to be he just assumed all the wrong things for
Mm-hmm.
his selfish reasonings. Uh, and while totally understandable, in 16 years and the Jedi that we've been seeing for the last couple of episodes, it's the noble Jedi who maybe has learned from his mistakes, but in this episode, to me, he's kind of doubling down on them
He's regressing.
somehow.
Yeah.
He's regressing because he's like, oh, you think that he's asking the council to come so he can confess, but no, he's asking the council to come so he can prove that everything he did was justified. So in a way, Saul was worse in this episode in terms of like his motivations than he was during the flashback. So how do you feel about Saul?
Some would say soul was soulless in this episode.
He lost he sold his soul.
He sold his soul to what? To an ideology? To religion?
To hubris? I don't
To
know.
hubris? To pride? To ego?
Twice the
Okay.
prize, double the fall.
Okay. First I have a question. And then I'm gonna get into soul. But my first question is, why do you need both twins to be alive to prove the virgins when they have blood samples from each one and then they have one of them alive? Do you know what I mean? That was one thing.
I think that's a question for our friend Alex Damon.
Okay,
That seems more
honestly,
of a
I'm
technical
texting
question.
Alex. I just was like,
Technical question.
why all of a sudden, like, okay, there's this line. Is this a kid-friendly show?
I mean, ish.
Okay, well, I'm going to quote Legally Blonde, but there's a
Sure.
word in it that rhymes with, it's a type of whale. Sperm whale.
Oh, I I was like,
Can I say that word
of course you
again?
can.
Okay. So there's this line in Legally Blonde, and she goes, "Why now? Why this sperm?" And it is a line that I think of every day of my life, not because I'm gay, but because I genuinely like am watching the show and I'm like, why now, Soul? Why now are you like in episode 8? Now you're like, I'm gonna bring May to the Jedi. When you hit her with your you had her locked to the table, bro. Like you had her locked to the table. Like
Sketchy.
I don't know what's going on. Also, you have blood samples from each of the twins, and one of the twins still alive at the Jedi Temple in the beginning of the season, there to corroborate everything. I
Mhm.
don't understand why all of a sudden he's like, no, I have both twins. That's what I need. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe because yeah, he had the blood samples, but because they're identical, the
Then
council
it
could be
looked
like,
like right,
yeah, you just messed up. This is probably a
sure,
false positive, or you just
but you
mixed up the sample. So it's
mhm,
just so he needs both twins to be like, see, the results were real. Look, because now I can physically prove it, as opposed to you saying
yeah.
that my results might have been a mistake or something. That's the
But then
only
you
thing that I can come up with.
yeah, but the only thing I could come up with that is like then you have Osha there as a Padawan being like, "Yes, he's right. That was my twin sister."
I mean, but the other part of it, though, it's the thing that we were talking about of him not accepting blame for anything.
Right, and what
Because
he yeah.
before May was alive, he was repentant, right, to an extent,
Mhm.
and felt bad about everything
Oh, I
and all these
see.
things. But once May's in the picture, he kind of, like you said, he regresses back to being like,
Yeah.
I was right.
He's like, "I don't have anything to feel bad about even though I killed their mom and their coven." I
I mean, I think that was a point part of that encounter between May and Soul, like after the
yeah.
fight with the Chimere. It's that he just keeps saying that I we were right to go in there
Okay.
and do what we did, which I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, bad,
Okay.
bad luck.
That that okay. Yes. Soul is a really cool character like on paper for me, but what we were just talking about is just a problem I have with him throughout the show. It's just like, what the fuck, man? Like, why are you so hell bent and adamant about having these like saving these kids? And also, is he
Savior
saving them?
complex.
Sure, sure, sure. I mhm. Um And, like, does he did he care about them or did he just care about proving the vengeance? I mean, the vengeance, not the vengeance, the virgins. Like, those are, like, questions I have where I like to think if we had more time, I would have those answers, but there's just certain motivations with him that, like, because of the I don't know, because of the writing, I'm gonna say
Mhm,
because of the writing, and that could be as a result of a short episode you know, season and a short episode content, all that kind of stuff. But regardless of why the writing was like this, the writing to me felt like out of nowhere, this guy just finds these kids and is fucking hell bent on saving them, which doesn't make any sense to me.
yeah,
And then I
I
just feel
see
like
that.
the campfire scene could have done a lot of good in
Mhm,
establishing what a vergence is and why it's so important to Soul to prove that it's real. Do you know what I mean?
mhm,
Like, just context would have been really valuable around the Virgins, and on top of that, just context for why Soul might have a savior complex, or might have a soft. Maybe he had a daughter that died. Maybe he had twins. Maybe he like maybe he's projecting like the kids he left at home to become, or like even sisters he left at home to become a Jedi. Like who knows? But there is just something there that I did not get with him, and he just came across as such a great character, but
mhm.
unintentionally great. I love the idea of this Jedi being like not good, not bad. He's just sort of nice. He's in the middle. But like
It's
I
just a
didn't
nice,
get he's just a nice guy.
and those are
Yeah,
the ones you have to watch out for.
100%. So that's my only thing with Saul is like I mean, I don't even know. I don't know. I don't have anything nice to say about him, so I'm gonna stop talking. I don't get his MO. I don't know what his vibe is. I don't know if he wants to be good or bad, or if he's like obsessive
Right.
over children for no reason, which is kind of pedo vibes. And then I don't know if he's just obsessive with like virgins. I don't know if he wants to be like the greatest Jedi ever, and he's like it's his like his his sole focus on like trying to be the best that is getting in his way. Like I don't even know what's getting in his way. It just comes across as like misplaced obsession.
I agree with the motivation aspect for Soul, and I kind of compare it with May in that regard, where for a lot of people, myself included to an extent, her switch from being like, "Oh, I don't need to do this anymore," because
Mm-hmm.
Ocean's Alive switch was a little too sudden.
Yeah.
We would have definitely been better if there had been more time to flesh that out to understand the motivations behind what she was doing and why this is now an acceptable path to take in. I also think that you're absolutely right. We need a little more time with past Soul to
Mm-hmm.
understand where he's coming from. And I think that said before and say it again, longer episodes and more episodes. And one
Yeah.
of the things that structurally I think I'm saying this as I were a writer, we're good at it, which I am absolutely not. And I don't want to take a dig at the writers' room for this show because they're absolutely talented people and they know
Yes.
what they're doing. But if I were to, maybe suggest things that might have given more time to flesh things out, I think that we should have had three different flashback structures. I think
Mm,
one one and two, which is like Saul's perspective, Osha's perspective, should have not been full episodes. I think
right.
they should have been
Intercut.
intercut with what's
Yeah.
happening in the moment to count, and
Yeah.
obviously longer snippets to see how those conversations from the past and the present relate to the motivations of where they were and where they are. You kind of like start
Mm-hmm.
seeing those snippets to get a fuller picture of like all these characters' histories.
Mm-hmm.
And then we should have had like an episode where it's just like the truth, right? Where it's just like the because obviously those flashbacks are subjective to their experience, so they're not the
Right.
truth, they're just their interpretations of the events that happen. And then we would have had the one episode that was just like, this is what happened, and
Right.
kind of see that so that we can understand. And I think that by doing those little shifts, like I think we could have had more time to explore some of those things and understand him and as a result, all the characters like that.
Could you imagine if we had like, and I know this is such a waste of everyone's time to talk like this. If we had like 22 episodes, like a season of Buffy the
But then
Vampire
they all
Slayer.
could be 30 minutes at that point.
Yes, but like 22 episodes because these characters are great. The actors are great. The creative team is great. The sets were amazing. I loved the sets, especially like in this episode, like Vanestra, like where she's like talking with May at the end. Like that set is so cool with like that
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
painted stained glass. Like it's so sick. All of it's so like everything about that works so well. And I don't know.
The production
I
design is amazing.
I hate to say Disney overlords, but I have to say Disney Overlords. I don't know what it is. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. But yeah, do you have anything else to say about Soul?
I mean, we could talk forever about all of these characters, but I think we should move on to Vernestra now that you
Okay.
mention her, because I think that her scenes, yes, three scenes in this
Mm,
episode, or at least three pivotal scenes in this
mm-hmm.
episode, and they're all delicious and juicy
So good.
for many, many different reasons. And while I thought that maybe she would have a showdown in this episode with Chimere, I think what they set up is vastly more interesting. So
Agreed.
let's have your reaction. Just as a quick aside, well, not aside, just for background reference, have you been reading the High Republic books at all?
I
Or,
read half of two of them.
okay,
I
so
read half of,
you have
I
some
think,
connection with Nestor.
yeah, reading sci-fi is hard for me.
Fair.
I think reading sci-fi, like that genre is a little bit tricky. Anyway, um, so okay, Vanestra. I actually never read the book where she was like, isn't she like a kid? It's like a YA book.
No, where she first, well, not first, she first appears in Light of the Jedi, but her
Oh, yeah,
main
okay, then I
her
did know
main
her from
book
that.
is oh my god, the great, grade A novels, like the even younger
Yeah.
ones than the YA. But now she
Okay.
has transitioned into YA, so hopefully we
Right.
get a adult novel about her character that
Yeah,
ties
because
into
she
the
seems
acolyte.
like a shady lady. Um,
Ooh.
I do she does. She seems like not a good person. She seems shadier than Soul to me, but, the conversation between her and the senator, like,
Ah, so good.
I'm
Loved it.
this is a biased POV, but Star Wars could always use more
But
politics, and, like, that oh my god. I'm gonna just hit on this once, but I do think that if the senator had a bigger role and
I
he
think
was
you will.
more of like I know, but in season 1, if he was just sort of like a smaller threat on this side and we knew that because his monologue about the Jedi,
So good.
I was like,
Yep.
I've never thought of the Jedi that way. That's like a really good point. Like that's like a dangerous group of people to have like be so unchecked in their power.
Mhm.
And it was an incredible monologue. And if we had that a little bit earlier, it would have like given so much more juicy context to Vanessa's scenes leading up to episode
Right.
8. I think it like her scenes would have even hit harder had we had that scene earlier. Okay, great. That's my one thing out of the way. The rest of this is all positive. That scene was just fucking hot. It was so good. And then I have to say, um, the confirmation of the stranger being Vanessa's like former Padawan
Yeah.
and the way they did that of her
So good,
stepping off the
right?
ship and then
It's
just
like all of a sudden,
flashing to him and then him like
you
oh my god.
terrified and just puts the mask on
Oh my
immediately. Oh,
god. It was so good because it was like to watch the stranger or Chimera. Is Chimera his real name? Do we know?
I'm gonna assume it is until
Great.
told
Until
otherwise.
yeah, great. So, but to see Chimera like switch from scary villain to like boy trying to hide from his
hmm
mom when he's getting
Yeah,
in
yeah,
trouble
yep.
was incredible. And it was a half a second of time. And they established so much in that, like, in that interaction. It was so fucking good. It was
Mhm,
so good. Cause like I was, obviously like we all saw the light whip marks on his back and
mhm.
everything. But to I don't know. It was almost somehow even more of a surprise in this episode for me to have it confirmed in the way it was. I just thought that was like expertly done. I
Yes.
absolutely loved that. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's what I'd say about Vanestra. I mean, the scene was great. The stuff at the end was interesting because to me, she's always read sort of darker. Like she doesn't seem like she knows what like the good thing to do is, which is why. But I don't know. I want to before I go into that. I want to know what you think of her.
Eh,
'Cause you perked up in a weird way when I was like, "I think she's, like, a bad person."
no, it's just hilarious that you say that because Annie has been on, is on that team. Like
Okay.
from day one, she's been like she's the bad guy, and I was
Yeah.
like, no, Vanessa's not the bad guy because I felt like a nerd. I was like, we got in the books.
Yeah.
So, but obviously a lot can change in the 100 years since the books are set and when the acolyte is set. So
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows what journey she has been on? But I'm glad that she's still with us on the light,
Mhm.
even though she's doing sketchy things. Uh, but but again, I think she's doing sketchy things. It's always easy to say it's a sketchy thing from the outside because we know the context around it.
Sure.
So it's we're like, oh no, it's bad because X, Y, and Z, and we know what happens in the
Mhm.
prequels and all that stuff. But
Sure.
there, we have to also, I feel like when we're judging what a character is doing at the time, we also have to
Right.
kind of be like, how would I react in that moment with that pressure and with everything that's around it. And I think that as much as which I think is the interesting thing too, like Rashomon flashback sequences of the distortion of the past based on our idealized self. There's
Mhm.
also that aspect of us when we think of how we would react in a situation. We also try to not try. We accidentally, I think, try to portray ourselves in the best version of ourselves and how we
Right.
would react and in any situation. And I think that we kind of can't do that with like fake characters because we're flawed and we react sometimes
Right.
not in the best ways in even simpler situations. So I think that she's in extraordinary situations and she's trying to do what she thinks is right. Same way
Mhm.
Indara did when at the end of the episode she's just like, well, now we have to lie and cover this up because
Mhm.
of everything that happened. Like she was doing everything by the book, and the only person kind of making the right decisions or trying to make the right decisions. But at the end, she makes the one mistake of making that saying that lie because she thinks it's gonna be for the better. But you know, good things based on bad foundations will crumble. And
Mm-hmm.
Osha now turned to the dark side because Indara uh, let Soul lie about it so he could take her on as an apprentice because she thought it would be the best thing. But it's like, well, maybe it could have been the best thing if it had been, solid foundation of honesty and truth, but it wasn't. So it crumbled, and I think that's why Indara is also interesting now because she's kind of in that same position where she's in this absolute complex situation where the dark side and the Sith are starting to poke into the Jedi's affairs, and now also the Senate is also coming in, and she's trying to manage all these things, and she messed up trying to do the right thing, and we'll see how that hopefully plays out in a season 2 because Yoda, I can almost guarantee, will not be giving her particularly good advice because if I've seen anything from Yoda in these High Republic books, it's just like dude's also sketchy, keeping secrets and hiding things from people. So I'm just like, what's gonna
Okay.
happen?
So but I have a question about that. What is Yoda's vibe in the High Republic series? You said shady and sketchy, but is he
Well,
like a liar?
no, but I mean, he's still the
Right,
Yoda that we know,
mischievous.
and he
Yeah.
likes to teach younglings and all these things. So he's still like
So he's cute.
ultimately,
He's still cute.
he's still ultimately good Yoda, right?
Right.
But for me, one of the sketchy things about, and I hope that it's explored during the phase 3 that
Sure.
we're now in the middle of in the High Republic books and comics. But in phase 2, there's like this big event that happens, and the Nameless, which are these, I mean, spoiler alert for people that
Hmm.
aren't reading the books and comics. But there's the Nameless, or the Leveler, as it's also called, which are these creatures that suck the Force out of Force users and just turn them into dust and all these things. And they're
Mm-hmm.
a terrifying creature that affects Jedi specifically. Well, Force users specifically, but affects Jedi a lot because fear and all that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of Phase 2, when Yoda and a bunch of Jedi confront them, he decides to do a cover up and kind of omit them from the chronicling of the event. So now, like,
Okay.
those creatures aren't in records. So I'm just like, you're in a cover up that if you had just included it, now like the Jedi in the present of the books would have been better prepared to handle it. So
Right.
how does that now translate into Acolyte? I think it's gonna be interesting.
So do you expect that Venestra? Here's my thing. I do tend to fall in the camp of when are we going to see Jedi being like heroes? And I get that there's a reality in which they're never heroes. Like, and I'm fine with that. But there seems to be like no Jedi who are at least like striving for the highest bar.
I think that we need to see Jedi during the High Republic, but before Light of the Jedi, because I feel like
Okay.
Light of the
The Great
Jedi.
Disaster radicalized everyone.
It's not necessarily that they radicalized them, but they were at their peak, and I think when you're at your
That's what I
peak
want.
is when you're most comfortable. So that's
Sure. And
when it starts,
complacent. Yeah.
like Light of the Jedi, like when it starts kind of coming down. But I still think they're good, right? I
Yeah.
think maybe before that is when they're like good. But I think they're also good because they're comfortable. They don't have to face things that are so adversarial that they need to be fearful. So I
Right.
don't know.
So with Yoda and Venestra, do you see Yoda being confrontational with her
No,
or supporting her covering up?
I would lean towards that, but jumping through mental hoops to justify why it would be kind of
Sure.
the right
And
thing, while also being like, okay, we need to. This is what we need to do, but let's also try to fix it on the other side so that we're covering our bases. Let's not just do a cover up. Let's also do the investigation on
Mhm.
the down low so that we can correct this
So
mistake.
is Acolyte before or after Yoda covers up the force sucking monsters?
200 years after.
So Yoda's already been covering things up.
Oh yeah.
So this is my issue. I want there to be someone who says, "Hey, if we have to cover it up, that means that we have something to hide." Do you know what I mean? And I just like I'm waiting for like someone to learn that lesson or for someone to be like, "We're Jedi. We're not supposed to be doing that." Because right now it just seems like there's sketchy people all around. Now, you could make the argument that that is exactly what George Lucas intended the Jedi to be, because it is like government, and it is like you just can't really trust major governments and people in extreme positions of power because everyone is fallible. So I get that argument. But I guess, yeah, I don't know. I don't know because Vanessa reads very not good to me. Between the cover up and also light whipping her Padawan,
Well, we don't
I'm
know what
gonna go
happened there.
sure. It's giving though she's really intense, and it just feels like she probably just like hit him because he was bad. That's what I'm getting.
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
I have never heard that. That is fucking funny. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Is that a boring conversation or a good conversation about Venestra? I just think the talking about Jedi is interesting to me right now because so many toxic fanboys are upset that the Jedi are like so flawed and like Jedi are like a lot of people say Disney wants to make Jedi evil.
I don't
Like a
think that's the
lot
case.
I
I
don't
think
think
you're
that's the
normal.
case either, but I do share some fraction of POV in terms of I would like to see Jedi be good people and Jedi do what's right, not what's easy. You know, that we see them doing what's I just would rather them
I
see the
see.
take the
So you to make a comparison, you don't want the Henry Cavill Superman. You want the Christopher Reeve Superman.
yeah, he doesn't do it he doesn't do what's easy. He does what's right.
You want the. It's fine to have the deconstruction of the myth and the
Sure.
complicated, it is tortured Superman that Zack Snyder gave us, but it's also nice to see the Richard Donner idealistic and
Yeah,
bright and happy and joyful Superman. I
or
see
at
what
least
I get you.
or at least one character in the ring that is the idealized Jedi, right? Like at
I
least
vibe.
have someone playing opposite because it just feels like everyone's bad.
Well, it's I think it's by design with this show specifically because, and Leslie has said it, it's like about the Sith. So it kind of
Yeah,
it makes sense that because it's kind of OSHA's perspective throughout that it's more like, okay, we're gonna frame them well, not frame them as villains because I don't think they are framed villains in certain situations, but I don't think that they're ultimately indicting them as villains. I think they're just showcasing the warts instead of the
instead of the
the
slay
positives
cheekbones.
instead of the slave
Hmm.
cheekbones. So I think this show by design, I think, is more structured towards the
Hmm.
more unseeming
Yeah,
aspects, unflattering parts of
sure.
the Jedi,
Yeah,
which I'm fine with because I like deconstructing things. But I get it.
yeah.
It would be nice to also have well, that's what Young Jedi Adventures is
Hey, those
Jedi
are my idealized Jedi.
fun
Um,
nubs. It's just
I
we're all nubs.
I have my nubs backpack up there. I think Annie and I are gonna have to like you're gonna have to buy us drinks when we inevitably are correct that Venestra becomes not good.
I can
I don't
Yeah, we
I
can make
don't
that happen.
disagree with her actions. I just feel like she's evil.
No,
I
no,
don't disagree with her actions. I just think she's like
no. She's
not a good person.
no. I disagree. She's great.
All right. Well, you've read a lot more than I have, so
She's great. Well, the thing is, it's one of those things where, yeah, like her characterization up to now in the books is X, which is she's young and she's hopeful and she's trying to do the right thing always and all these things. But it's been 100 years since Acolyte and where she is currently. So if a lot of things can happen in 4 years in this country, I
unfortunately,
would
yeah.
imagine that a lot more can happen in a Hondo to
A Hondo.
to a Jedi. So,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
anyway, we'll see in season two. But it's one of those things where we can be talking forever about everything. So, but before we kind of wrap up, I think, for today and this season finale, not
Mhm.
series finale. Let's
Mhm.
look a little bit into the future. Into we're projecting. We're projecting that
Mhm.
there's going to be a season two because
Okay,
we
I'm seeing it.
vibed with this last episode, and we want to see where Darth Plagueis takes us, where Yoda takes us, where we're gonna get Star Wars first love scene between
Ooh.
Kymir and Osha.
Oh, I'm there for that.
So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit, yeah, about what you would hope to see on an eventual season two.
And eventual season 2, I don't wanna spend too long. I mean, I feel like it's a lot of what I've said. I don't wanna spend too long on the erased memory thing. I would love to see a further exploration of what you analyzed in terms of 2 characters who are the same person, each going on the light, the dark, and then they flip-flop to dark and the light, and then they both can have a fine ending where they're just kind of content in the middle and living life sort of like Grey Jedi vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Not to bring up Grey Jedi, but like I like that idea for them. I do tend to ship I also kind of like the idea because I do like Osha and Kymir. I kind of like the idea of Osha calming down Kymir a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
like relaxing his vibe a little bit because he seems like he's acting still out of a really gnarly place of trauma with the Jedi because he's like, they tell me I can't exist, all that kind of stuff. Like,
Right.
so I like that idea. So just general healing for these main characters would be nice. I would like to see a Jedi trying to do the right thing. I would like to see more conflict within the order. It feels like there's just a bunch of grown-up Jedi telling everyone what they're gonna do, and a bunch of kids going "leetle leetle 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 leetle," just following the adults around. So I'd like some inner conflict that maybe the government can prey on, or maybe the government can. Maybe the Jedi can like work through their differences and find a way to like keep the government out of it for a little bit longer. That'd be cool. I want more politics for sure. I don't really care about Darth Plagueis' story, like what it ends up looking like. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he looks cool. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. I was so confused by the Darth Plagueis appearance because, like, I get it in terms of creating life. I am confused in terms of is he a master? Is he apprentice? Does Kymir know he's there? It just almost too many questions for him to actually. I have too many questions about him to even predict anything about him. But I don't know, that's basically what I would love to see. What about you?
Uh, no, that's interesting what you just said about Plagueis, because now you got my noggin churning, and I wonder, yeah, like what the relationship is, because maybe there is no relationship.
Yeah.
Because in episode five, when Soul asked him like, "What are you?" Kymir said like, "Oh, you might call me Sith." So he's not claiming that he's a Sith. He's just
Yeah.
saying that that's what. So maybe it's one of those things, and that the reason that Vernestra and him had their little spat was that he was reading, the forbidden books in the library about the dark side and the Sith, and
And then she whipped him because she's not a good person.
and she's like, you're a naughty boy, and your arms are too strong, and we gotta deal with that. And maybe he's a fake Sith in the sense that he doesn't have a Sith master, but he read about the Sith, and
I
he's
think
just
that's what it
doing
is.
his thing. And Plagueis is just like, no, 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 I'm Papa Sith here. So maybe,
Mhm.
I mean, this is just a theory based
I
on
like that. I like
everything
that.
that you were saying. So, but we'll see. I'm excited. I just want, I just anything that they do, I just don't want it to just be trite. And that's
Mhm.
not to say that it has to be unpredictable, because I think a lot of this season was predictable,
Mhm.
but that's not inherently a bad thing. I think that it's not, yeah, just because you see that some twists are coming, when the twist comes, it's still satisfying. Uh,
Yes.
and I think that's totally valid in
Yeah.
some stories. And I think that the
Yeah.
acolyte worked despite having things be obvious. But I think the obvious thing isn't what was going to happen; is the relationships of why those
Yeah.
things happen, like we said at the
Yeah.
beginning. I just hope that Leslie, when she gets the opportunity to start writing for season two, just kind of keeps the uniqueness of that writing moving forward,
Yeah.
because I don't wanted to go in the, this might be controversial, in the Mandalorian season 2 direction, where it's just
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
shifts focus from the pulpy adventure of the week and exploring what it means to be Din Djarin and Grogu
Yeah.
relationship to let's just build this show
Mhm.
outward now into the Star
And
Wars
now we have
saga.
Luke Skywalker, and now
And
we have
yeah,
all these big
exactly.
things. Yeah, 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 yeah. It
Which
does feel like it could fall into that a little bit.
which I mean, some things work better than others. Like Cobb
Sure.
Vanth was great. So is Bo
Yeah.
Katan. Some things
Mhm.
make sense to grow organically for season 2, but on the whole, season 2 and even more season 3 felt like it kind of lost the core
Yeah.
of the show. And I just hope that a season 2 just keeps that core. And it's just
Yeah.
the intrigue, the character developments, and I think that what it set up, I think, is already good
Mhm.
fodder for us to chew on for our speculations going into season 2 with the relationship with Vernestra, the council, the cover up, and everything that happened
Yeah.
between her and Kymir, and then obviously Kymir and Osha's relationship and whatever machinations Plagueis
Yeah.
is going to be doing in the background. Which honestly, I hope we get very little Plagueis. I hope that he's still
Mm.
like in the shadows and he pops in and out and does creepy stuff and whatnot. But I don't want him to be still in the show. I feel like we still gotta study Kymir a lot more.
I kinda love the idea of, like, Hymir, like you said, like, us exploring Hymir, Venestra, and then having Osha there. I kinda like that, like, if I forgot this is an audio thing, I was gonna use a visual. So, like, if, like, the Jedi are, like, the shrimp, okay, and they're swimming in
Yeah.
the ocean, and then Kymir and Osha come and try to eat the shrimp and just, like, fucking decide to, like, go rail on the Jedi just for fun and just, like, take vengeance on Venestra or like become terrorists against the Jedi Order on Coruscant, like
Mhm.
at their core, because they know it would look bad for them publicly and they want to instill that kind of fear in them. And then fucking Plagueis is the biggest fish and comes and fucking kills Kymir, takes Osha, makes like forces her to share the secrets of how like they could exist, and then kills her off, and then like
Mhm.
Plagueis is the biggest fish. Ooh, that'd be
I
fun.
mean, you play with fire, you're gonna get burned. And I think
Hey,
that
there's always a bigger fish.
if Qui-Gon, rest in peace. If Kymir and Osha continue their journey in darkness, the dark will take over.
Mm.
So hopefully they either their candle burns out that way with what you just said, or they find a way out
Yeah, maybe
to
May can pull him out.
more
May can pull him
peaceful
out.
pastures. But anyway,
Mm,
as I said, we could be talking about this forever, and we will continue talking about it
we
at a
will.
bar.
At a
And
bar.
but for now, I think this has been a wonderful conversation, insightful, fun, and interesting to see different points of view. Obviously, with like how we're connecting with the show in different ways. So thank you, Chase.
Thank you. This was
Thank
so
you for
fun.
coming.
I was telling Blake before, I was like, I kind of miss talking about Star Wars in this way. So it's like it's the first time I've got to do that in a very concentrated way, and I was so grateful it was with you. So thank you very much for having me.
No, no, the pleasure is all mine, as always. Before we sign off, though, this is a complicated part now
Oh, I
in
know.
this segment because usually when I have a guest, I ask them to be like, "Hey, where can people find you? What are
Sure.
you up to?" So they can talk about their upcoming projects and their social media. But
Mm,
as we know, you're on a different journey right now. So why don't you
yeah.
just tell us about your life?
You can find me in Chicago. No, you can listen. I technically still have a YouTube channel up. You can go YouTube that they get that gay Jedi or Cyber Chase 00, but you're just gonna get the animated show Cyber Chase. That was a KPBS show, so I got to figure out the SEO on that. But if you want to reach out, I mean, I still have my Gmail, thatgayjedi@gmail.com. I'd
Mhm.
love an email. Hey, pop an email over and I'll respond.
That's great, and
That's
I
all I
will.
got, Goose.
I'll dig those links up and put them
Thank
there.
you.
So there's clickable, actionable items there.
We love a
But
hyperlink.
we love and we love
Mhm.
variety, and we
Oh, we
love variety.
love writing.
So many hyperlinks. But yes, thank you so much, Chase. You have been
Thank you.
a one, like I said in the beginning, like wonderful voice in fandom.
Thank you.
But even better friend. I'm very lucky to consider you a friend and a close friend at
Me
that,
too.
and happy
Me
to
too.
have you in my life, and very happy to share these couple of minutes that we've been talking
Me
about the
too.
acolyte. But with that, thank everybody that has joined us on this acolyte journey. You have all become Triad of the Forces acolytes. We appreciate it. We won't whip you with a light whip, so don't worry. We will. Uh, we won't reward you, I guess, because we don't have anything to give you. But I think
Hey, you might be have some cool things soon.
we maybe well, I mean, not maybe, definitely we'll have some stuff. So
Definitely.
just check out the Instagram, and you guys will know what Chase is
What's
talking
the
about.
Instagram again?
Oh, try out the force, baby.
At Triad of the
I tried
Force.
out the force. I tried out the force in all the socials, in fact.
Ugh,
Uh,
easy. Love it.
but thanks everybody. Trial of the Force will continue. We'll just switch gears, obviously, from talking about the acolyte to talking about who knows what. We'll have to figure that out. Um, as I said at the beginning of this acolyte review series, Nani is studying for the bar, so she's still going to be out of the channel for like a couple of weeks as she prepares for those exams. So we'll figure it out as we do. The studies are more important than podcasting. But thank you as always. If you like what you hear, make sure to follow us on all the social medias. Twitter, where we're the least active, but we have to keep so that we can push our content out. At Triad of the Force, or where we're most active, Threads at Triad of the Force as well, and Instagram, so you can see unhinged reels that I find at 2 in the morning that I just share. So make sure to check us out there if you want to support the channel. We have the T Public, where we have some cool designs there that every little bit helps. I need to change this laptop, so please help us. And YouTube, if you want to see our beautiful faces, uh, just search Trial of the Force and you'll find us. But with that, thanks everybody for light in life, and may the Force be with you.